Greetings, children. This is the third and final part of your lesson, Silk Road. It's for class 11 cbse students. The first two part, if you didn't watch it, I have given the links in the description box. Click it, watch, and come back. Then it is easy for you to understand it. After learning this lesson, you will be able to differentiate what is fact and fiction in travelogues, or when we consider the concepts related with our spiritual life, religious life. What is the fact is there, and what the reality that we can learn. Along with that, you will be able to describe any travel that you make in your life after reading and learning the descriptive methods of Middleton. The third part, in the first two parts, Middleton dealt with his journey starting from Ravu and with many difficulties, and most of the scenes that he has seen throughout the journey, and sometimes certain difficulties, and finally he reached at Darchan. From here onwards, he has to trek the journey. He has to walk up to Mount Kailash. Let us go to the third and final part of the lesson, Silk Road. The third section starting from page 80. Once he saw that I was going to leave, Satan left me to return to Lhasa. After reaching Darshan, he felt a certain illness, and Satan took him to Darshan Medical College and saw the doctor there. And when he was getting back his strength, his health, Satan left this writer Middleton, and he wanted to go back to Lhasa. As a Buddhist, he told me he knew that it did not really matter if I passed away, but he thought it would be bad for business. Before he left Middleton, he made a remark that really caught Middleton's mind. When he completed his Quran and started writing this book, he quoted the remark of Satan here. As a Buddhist, he told Middleton that he knew that it did not really matter if I passed away. As a true Buddhist, Satan did not mind it or did not concern too much of the death of Middleton if it would happen at the holy place. But he thought it would be bad for business. At the same time, Satan, as a man of business, thought it would badly affect his business. So his religious belief made him think that death is not the end of life. As a true Buddhist, he does not worry much about his death at a holy place like Mount Kailash, because a person who dies at a holy place, as according to his belief, he would be taken to heaven. So that was his consolidation. That was his consolation for even death. But at the same time, he realized that it would affect badly his business, because it was his moral duty to look after his tourists well. And if they die, it would take his business at stake. That was his fear. So that is expressed here. Middleton very brilliantly brought that remark of Satan here in this part of the description. Come to the next paragraph. Darchan did not look so horrible after a good night's sleep. Actually, this town of Darchan disappointed Middleton. But after a good night's sleep, it no longer looked horrible for Middleton. It was still dusty partially derelict. Derelict here means neglected or in ruins or in a dilapidated condition. And punctuated by heaps of rubble. Punctuated here means scattered or interrupted by heaps of rubble. Heaps of rubble here means debris or ruins or wreckage all around the town. That was the cause of disappointment for Middleton with Darchen. The town was partially derelict and punctuated by heaps of rubble and refuse. But the sun shone brilliantly in a clear blue sky. But they could see the sun in the clear blue sky. And the outlook across the plain to the south gave me a vision of the Himalayas. Then from the town of that Darshan, just after the town there was a plain area. After that plain area, he could see the brilliance of Himalayan mountains, commanded by a huge snow-capped mountain. From there, he could see a snow-capped mountain, Gurla Mantata. The mountain at this part of Tibet or Darshan is called Gurla Mantata. Look at the picture there. With just a wisp of cloud. Wisp of cloud here means a small bundle. A small bundle of cloud suspended over its summit. It's a wonderful sight for him, seeing Himalayas from its foothills. When the sun came and shone over at the top of the snow-capped mountains, he felt it as a wonderful experience in his life. Come to the next paragraph. The town had a couple of rudimentary general stores. Rudimentary here means very basic, simple and basic or primary things they sell there. General stores selling Chinese cigarettes, soap, and other basic provisions. Some rudimentary or basic provisional shops you can see in this town. Other than that, nothing is there. As well as the usual strings of prayer flags. You can also buy from these rudimentary general stores the prayer flags because it is a sought after thing there. The pilgrims buy these prayer flags, strings of prayer flags to donate at the Mount Kailash journey. In front of one, men gathered in the afternoon for a game of pool. In one such shop's front, you can see a little group of men. They are playing game of pool. Look at the picture here. The battered table looking supremely incongruous in the open air. Here, the battered table. Battered here means very advanced, very improved. A very good table, looking supremely incongruous. Incongruous means unsuitable or odd or strange or weird. Mismatching, incongruity in the open air. While nearby women washed their long hair in the icy water of a narrow brook. The other scene he could see there is the women folk of that Darshan. They are washing their long hair in the brook that babbled down past my guest house. That brook babbled down. Babbled down here means flowed down with a little bit of noise. Singing, noise that this brook's producing, that flowing down his guest house. Darshan felt relaxed and unhurried. This town of Himalaya that felt relaxed and unhurried, without any hurry. It remained silent. But for me, it came with a significant drawback. But for Middleton, this town remained a drawback, a significant drawback, because there was no pilgrims. He couldn't find any pilgrims to accompany him to complete the Mount Kailash. Because after darshan, the pilgrims have to walk the entire distance up to Mount Kailash. They can travel by their vehicles only up to darshan. That's why Satan left him after dropping him at darshan. From darshan, they have to trek the rest of the Korah. So nobody was there to accompany him. That was the drawback he felt at darshan. Come to the next paragraph. I had been told that at the height of the pilgrimage season, the town was bustling with visitors. Bustling here means busy. If it were the pilgrimage season, the town would be bustled with pilgrims. But he came a little earlier. He couldn't find any pilgrims there, any visitors there. Many brought their own accommodation, enlarging the settlement around its edges as they set up their tents with the spilled down onto the plain. During the pilgrimage season, you could see, or one could see, the tents of pilgrims that going up to the plain area. Everywhere you could see the tents erupted by these pilgrims. But now it was not the beginning of the season. He couldn't find any tents or any traveler there, any pilgrims there. I had timed my travel for the beginning of the season. Actually, Middleton planned, timed here means planned, his travel or his arrival for the beginning of the season, but it seemed too early. But he planned his pilgrimage a little bit earlier than he expected. That was the drawback he felt. One afternoon, I sat pondering my options over a glass of tea in Durchan's Ollie Cafe. Once again, he came back to the Ollie Cafe at Durchan. Now he was pondering over a cup of tea. Pondering over here means thinking over whether he could complete the Korah or not, because he was alone. No one was there to accompany him. That was his difficulty. He was thinking over it. After a little consideration, I concluded they were severely limited. So his options were limited. After a lot of thinking, he came to the conclusion that his options were limited. Clearly, I had not made much progress with my self-help program on positive thinking. But he was always reminded as a positive thinker. And his self-help program on positive thinking, he felt could not work properly. In my defense, it had been easy with all my sleeping difficulties, but however I looked at it, I could only wait. So the greatest difficulty with him now was his sleeplessness. During the last 2 nights, he couldn't sleep well. Only the previous night he could sleep. So he decided to wait. He couldn't go alone all this length of way up to Mount Kailash. So he decided to wait. The pilgrimage trail here means the track, the path that was well trodden. Well trodden means walked on by many people, a well trodden path. The footprints of the pilgrims made it a well trodden path. The path was well trodden. But I did not fancy doing it alone. But he could not even imagine doing it alone. The Cora was seasonal because parts of the route were liable to blockage by snow. This Cora, this pilgrimage to Mount Kailash was seasonal because parts of the route were liable to blockage by snow. Due to snow falling, the way to Mount Kailash was blocked with this snow falling. So he couldn't take the pilgrimage at any season, at any time of the year. So he had to wait. He thought. I had no idea whether or not the snow had cleared. As he was a newcomer to the place, he had no idea of whether he would meet with the snow or not. But I was not encouraged by the chunks of dirty ice that still clung to the banks of Darchan's brook. But one clear evidence was just in front of him. I was not encouraged by. He was not encouraged by seeing this sight, the chunks of dirty ice, the falling ice that still clung, that still rust on the banks of the Darchan brook. He could see from the place where he staying now, the falling ice. Since Satan had left, I had not come across anyone in Darchan with enough English to answer even this most basic question. Once Satan had left him, he couldn't find any other person in this area of Darchan to ask about this basic question, whether he could meet with any snow falling on the route or not. He couldn't find anyone who knew English there. Until that is, I met Norbu. The cafe was small, dark, and cavernous. Cavernous here means hollow and roomy, with a long stove that ran down the middle. In the cafe, you could see a metal stove that was ran down. Ran down here means that is dilapidated, being in poor repair. An old stove that was kept at the middle of the shop, at the middle of the room. The walls and the ceiling were wreathed in sheets of multicolored plastic. Wreathed here means cupboard. It is not a pakka building. It is something like a makeshift shed. It is made out of the plastics available there, wreathed in sheets of multicolored plastic of the striped variety with different lines and decorations, broad blue, red, white, that is made into stout. Stout here means strong. Strong, tarpaulin-like plastic. It is voluminous. Voluminous here means huge and big. Shopping bags. Yes, with this plastic they made voluminous shopping bags also, and they sell all over China and in many other countries of Asia as well as Europe. Which means all over you could see such plastic shopping bags made out of these plastics. As such, plastic must rate as one of China's most successful exports along the Silk Road. Now, this plastic goods is one of China's most successful exports along this Silk Road. Look at the next paragraph. The cafe had a single window beside which I had taken up the position so that I could see the pages of my notebook. I had also brought a novel with me to help pass the time. So only one window had this shop. He just sat down beside that window because he wanted the light. He wanted to write something on his notebook and he had with him a novel. He wanted to read it. So he took the place just beside the window. Norbu saw my book when he came in and asked with a gesture if he could sit opposite me at my rickety table. Rickety here means very shaky or wobbly table. When Norbu came, he got permission through a gesture. He wanted to sit just opposite of Middleton and he asked permission through gesture and Middleton gave him that permission. He sat down just opposite of that shaky table. You English? He inquired after he had ordered tea. As he sat down, he ordered for tea and started conversing with Middleton. He asked him whether he was an Englishman. I told him I was, and we struck up a conversation. Struck up here means causally to begin a conversation. That was the beginning of the conversation between Norbu and Middleton. I did not think he was from the parts because he was wearing a windcheater and a metal-rimmed spectacles of Western style. When Middleton saw Norbu for the first time, he couldn't think that he was belonging to this Tibetan area because of his outfit. He was wearing a windcheater and metal-rimmed spectacles. Naturally, he thought that he would be a Western man. He was Tibetan, he told me, but worked in Beijing at Chinese Academy of Social Sciences in the Institute of Ethnic Literature. But he was a professor by profession, working at the Academy of Social Sciences in the Institute of Ethnic Literature in Beijing, capital of China. I assumed he was on some sort of field work. Immediately, Middleton assumed that he would be there for some kind of field work. Yes and no, he said. The answer for that question was somehow it was a field work, and in another way it was not. I have come to do the Korah. Actually, the man came there to complete his Korah. When Middleton heard this, his heart jumped. He was so happy because he was waiting for somebody to accompany him to complete the Korah. So his heart jumped when he heard that he was there to complete his Korah. Norbu had been writing academic papers about the Kailash Korah and its importance in various works of Buddhist literature for many years. He told me, but he had never actually done it himself. This Norbu was a man who writes papers, academic papers about Kailash Korah, its importance and its significance in various works of Buddhist literature. He has been doing this for many years, but the irony of the situation is, the incongruity of the situation is, he never did the Korah in his life. This is a significant part of this lesson. Most of the religious things or spiritual knowledge that people write about or speak about, they never had really experienced it in their life. They imagine it something like that and writing about it. That is what we can see here in Norbu's experience. He had been writing about the Mount Kailash Korah for many years as an academician, he was writing all these things, but he never did the Korah in his life. That is the incongruity of the situation here. When the time came for me to tell him what brought me to darshan, His eyes lit up. Then Middleton also revealed his mission to coming to Darshan. Then he said we could be a team. He said excitedly. Norbu was so excited hearing that Middleton was also there for completing his Quora. Two academics who have escaped from the library. Perhaps my positive thinking strategy was working after all. Once again, Middleton comforted himself that his positive thinking strategy working well here also. These two academics, they have actually escaped from their library and coming back to life in the practical life. They wanted to experience the practicality of life and met together there. My initial relief at meeting Norbu, who was also staying in the guest house, was tempered by the realization that he was almost as ill equipped as I was for the pilgrimage. But his initial relief that meeting Norbu, who was also staying at the guest house, was tempered by. Tempered here means diluted or lessened. His first enthusiasm, that interest that started diminishing slightly. When he realized that he was almost as ill-equipped. Ill-equipped here means not having the experience or preparation that is needed. Both these people had no such preparation for completing the Quora, and they came there. He kept telling me how fat he was and how hard it was going to be. This was what Norba used to tell Middleton. He was so fat and it was so hard for him to complete the Quora. Very high up, he kept reminding me, so tiresome to walk. It is so high up and very tiresome, so tiresome to walk up to there. This is what Norbu used to tell this Middleton. He was not really a practicing Buddhist. Then he realized that Norbu was not a practicing Buddhist. He only wrote about this significance or importance or magnificence of doing the Mount Kailash Quora. But in reality, in practicality, he was not ready to take part in it. It transpired. Transpired here means become known or clear. That was very clear. This man was not a practicing Buddhist, but he had enthusiasm. But the man had enthusiasm. Enthusiasm here means interest or fervor or eagerness or a passion. He had a passion and he was, of course, Tibetan. Why he had that passion? Because he was also a Tibetan. But in practicality, he was not ready to do that because he was so fatty and he couldn't walk the high up the path up to Mount Kailash. Come to the last paragraph of the lesson. Although I had originally envisaged here means imagined or envisioned or foresaw. This is what he foresaw, this is what he planned. Making the trek. Trek means the walk or the journey. Making the trek in the company of devout believers. Devout here means sincere, serious believers. That was his plan. That was what he foresaw. On reflection, I decided that perhaps Norbu would turn out to be ideal companion. So he thought that this Norbu would be his ideal companion. He suggested we hire some yaks to carry our luggage. They had to spend sometimes 1 or 2 days. So they wanted to hire some yaks. That is the animal available there in the Tibetan Himalayan areas to carry their luggages. Look at the picture there. which I interpreted as a good sign. And Middleton also supported that idea, and he had no intention of prostrating himself all around the mountain. But this man, he had no intention of prostrating, that is, the laying down as a way of praying at the Mount Kailash, himself all round the mountain. Not possible, he cried. So, going up to the Mount Kailash and prostrating there, that is, lying at body length and praying all around that Mount Kailash. When he was asked about it, he said, not possible. The man couldn't do it. He cried, collapsing across the table, and started laughing, and he collapsing across the table in hysterical laughter because he couldn't do it. He could write about it, but in practicality, he couldn't perform that prostrating Kora pilgrimage to Mount Kailash. It was not his style, and anyway, his tummy was too big. So, doing this was not his style because his tummy was too big. He was too fatty. He couldn't carry out that Kora. That is the end of Silk Road. And that is the end of this lesson, Silk Road. If you like the video, please thumbs up and subscribe the channel and press the bell icon. You will get notification of the other videos. Thank you for watching till the end.